I'm Susan, and welcome back to Tea and Games after a unexpected hiatus. We're going to talk about games today. We're still dealing with some aftermaths of the hurricane in that the lights still sometimes blink and can go out for just a little while, but we're doing well enough that I want to try to catch up on some of the games we've been playing. Despite the fact, actually up to the point at which we were interrupted by hurricane, we were having a crazy amount of fun playing games. The tea today is Builders, because this is Monday and I'm just, I need something that's gonna wake me up. And I forgot what else I was going to say, and we may be interrupted by Chihuahua. She's staring out the window, and apparently she sees something. There are small, quiet woofs coming from the side there, and they may become very loud woofs at some point. As I said, a crazy amount of fun playing games, and I'm going to try to catch you up. When we last saw all of y'all, and welcome to new subscribers. I hope you stick around. Sometimes videos are highly chaotic and sometimes they are well organized. It remains to be seen which one this one is. Robert and I made a list of 5 games each. That video was a few weeks ago at least, 5 games each that we wanted to get to the table this summer. Not necessarily summery games per se, but just games that we just really love, and we're always saying, yeah, I love that game, but we just haven't played it in a long time. So of those, we have played 3 since I last talked to you, and let me see if I can find the 3 that we played, and I don't have them all on the table. I only have 2 of the 3 on the table. Well, the other one is big and it's up on the top of the Calyx, and I'm just going oh, do I have to take it down? And that would be Ticket to Ride Europe, the anniversary edition. Is it 15th anniversary? I can never remember what number the anniversary is. But it's like a big deluxeified thing. It has really nice train cars, and it's got a big full color board, linen finish. It's just really lovely. This is our favorite Ticket to Ride, and it was on Robert's list of games that we really love that we haven't played in a while and want to get to the table sometime soon. So we have played that, and it was a huge amount of fun. We do have some of the smaller Ticket to Rides. We have London, and we've got the regular Ticket to Ride, but we always tend to go for this deluxeified European edition. This is our favorite. I really like that big sprawling board and long convoluted routes. You can have a lot of fun with that. And that's not on the table now. The box is an oversized box. It will not fit into a Calyx cube. It's just too wide. It's like standard depth, but it's big. It's a bigger square essentially. So it goes up on top of the Calyx. And right now it's actually got another Ticket to Ride and a dice tray on top of it. And the other one from Robert's list is Horrified Universal Monsters. This is our favorite Horrified. We also have American Monsters, but when we say, oh, let's play Horrified, this is the one we usually grab, unless we say we should play American Monsters. Yes, we have not played that. We've got it. We must play it. It's not a bad game. We like it okay. But if we want to play Horrified, we go for this because we like the Universal monsters, those classic old monsters. And we can have kind of a metagame playing this, like talking about Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolf Man and the Mummy and the Invisible Man, and going oh yes, and Frankie's going here, and here comes the Mummy. So, I don't know, we just kind of relate to this one better because we like those old movies. And so we did get this to the table. We played 2 games back to back, which is a little unusual. We've been playing more games back to back lately. And binging games that are not necessarily super short, but sometimes just games. The first game we played, because it had been so long since we played this, and Robert was complaining that it had kind of slid into that spooky season game thing, that we were only playing it in October. And he says that we should be playing this year round, and he's utterly right. Robert is my husband, for those of you who are new subscribers. He won't appear on video, but he and I are casual weekend board gamers, and he's my primary board gaming partner. But yeah, he's absolutely right. We should play this more often because it is so much fun. When we first started playing it, we struggled with two monsters, and we would like run the monster deck out, or the threat level would go off the thing because like too many villagers got killed and eaten by the monsters. But we've gotten better at it. We hadn't played it in a while, so we played Invisible Man and Wolfman in our first game, and we won that fairly handily. So we played a second game, or right after that one, just reset everything and pulled in Gillman, who is my favorite of the Universal monsters, the creature from the Black Lagoon. So then we did Invisible Man, Wolfman, and Gillman. And that was a little bit trickier or tougher, even though some of those monsters are not, and different monsters in this book have different difficulty levels. Each one has a different way of defeating it, so some of them are harder to do than others. And of course, you increase the difficulty level simply by adding monsters. This one got kind of close. We got down to within, I think, 2 cards of the end of the monster deck. So that's basically 2 turns. Of course, and the monster deck is really thin. And that gave us a lot of trouble when we were first starting out and we were less good at optimizing our moves. But yeah, we did win, but it was a little bit closer than it probably should have been, which is another reason we need to play this more often so that we don't get our butts kicked by a whole bunch of easy monsters. Well, they weren't all easy, but some of them were. So yeah, we played that. We had a huge amount of fun. And what with the hurricane and storms rolling in after the hurricane and before the hurricane and everything, we've had some dark and stormy nights or dark and stormy afternoons or weekends, and this is perfect for that. That and Ticket to Ride, which wasn't on here, and those two were 2 of Robert's 5 that he wanted to play this summer. Now, one of my games that I wanted to play this summer, and a lot of the games that were on my list were games that were bigger and longer and heavier, but one of them was a small box game. This is from 25th Century Games. It is Space Explorers. We like this. This was one of a handful of games that Robert grabbed right before we went into lockdown. We weren't really into board games until the pandemic. We just, played games with the family, and it was usually Catan. But Robert, we just kind of looked at each other and said, we need to be playing games with each other because we could just be here for a while. So he just grabbed a handful of random games, and this was one of them. And Space Explorers is from 25th Century Games. It is a small box game. I would call it family weight. It's fairly easy to learn. It's got nifty retro art. You can see here, this is actually some of the art that's on the cards. This is the player aid. And one of the things that makes this neat is that all of the projects, which are the objectives that you're trying to do, these are actual, real hardware that was part of the space program back in the day. There's no modern stuff, but yeah, these were actual things that were made or that were on the drawing board at the time. Down here are the cards you need to, the number of scientists in your research center you need to be able to complete these projects. And we really like this game. I wouldn't say it's the greatest game of all time, but for a really unassuming looking little small box game with retro art, we just didn't have high expectations. But it's a solid little game, and we enjoy it. And so because we enjoy it, When they came up with expansions on GameFound, I just said, oh, yes, please. So I got the Age of Ambition expansion. This expansion is not a whole thing unto itself. What it is what it is several different modules. I think they're actually numbered 1 through 7. 7 is the highest of the modules. And what they recommend is you roll in 3 modules at a time. So that way you have actually a lot of variability in terms of adding elements and making changes to the base game. One thing they did that strikes me as being kind of counterintuitive, this is the booklet for it, and the instructions for these things are really good. And they have all the different modules in here. One thing they did that struck me as counterintuitive is I feel like they numbered the modules backwards. You know how when you get a game and you're rolling in new components, starting with the easiest and going to the most difficult, basically just kind of raising your game gradually? Yeah, that's not the way these are numbered. The module that is number 1 is actually the most complex module, the module that makes the biggest, most fundamental changes to the base game, whereas game 7 is like the teeny tiniest little module that just makes one little bitty tiny change. It adds a tile, and which makes the game easier, by the way. That might be something you want to roll in if you're introducing it to somebody. But yeah, one of the things, we had this on the table. I have actually, like when I first got the Age of Ambition expansion, when the Kickstarter first delivered, we got it, we put it on the table, something happened, we didn't get to it that weekend. It stayed on the table, then there was something else we wanted to play, it got pushed aside, and then something else came up, and finally I just packed it away and said, oh, there's just stuff happening. This is not going to hit the table. Because it was just, I don't know why. And because it didn't remain there on the end of the table, it kind of got lost in the shuffle and forgotten a little bit. Out of sight, out of mind. So I said, yeah, I want to play this. I mean, I got this because we really like this game. And every time we play this game, we say we should really play this more often. And then we got the expansion and didn't play it. So that was one of my things, play this expansion. And we didn't do half bad. We made a good dent in those modules. We played because the modules go, we started with basically the cluster of 3. They recommend 3 at a time. We started with the 3 easiest, which would be 5, 6, and 7. Roll those in, played the game with that. We like that. And then what we did is we rolled in module 4 on our second game, and we did 4, 6, and 7. Again, keeping those 2 easiest modules. Also, for some reason, module 5 did not, we never actually, it had, if I'm recalling, that's the one that had a tile that gave you special abilities. And both of us didn't quite really use those abilities in that game. It just, the abilities that we drew just didn't quite work out for us. We are playing this 2-person, I might add. And here's an interesting thing about Space Explorers. Space Explorers has one of the most interesting resource management. I'm talking about the base game here, but you still play it that way, even with the expansion. It has one of the most interesting resource management things that I have ever seen. When you set up for the game and it plays up to 4, there is a finite set number of resources in the entire game, and they are extremely limited. Everybody gets 1 of each kind of research token. So I think that's like 5 tokens. I don't remember here. Let me see. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 tokens, 5 different types of research. So, and they're color-coded. And they also have symbols. So if you have trouble distinguishing colors, the colors and symbols, they do a good job on that. So each player has 5 tokens, one of each color, which means that if you have a 4-player game, you have a total of 20 resources in which you must pay for everything throughout the whole game. And you start off with 5, and the rest of them belong to somebody else. So what you do is, there are ways of mitigating the cost of cards and projects and things, well, the cards that you're going to be buying, which will help you complete the projects, such as some of the cards have research tokens on the bottom of them that you can then use as part of what you're spending to get a discount for those cards that cost a lot of tokens, or that have a lot of one color of tokens. So that can help there. And also, as you add scientists to your research center, you get a discount from the bottom of the card up for each scientist ahead of that one in the discount center. You'll still have to pay full price for that first scientist in that particular color slot. But after you've got a scientist in each color slot, you start seeing a little discount there. So there are ways of discounting things for those expensive cards. But the way you pay for the cards, aside from the discounts and the little bonuses on the bottom of cards, is you pay for them with your research tokens. So you might like take 2 red tokens and a yellow to pay for this really inexpensive card that won't get you a lot of points, but has some nifty bonuses down at the bottom. So when you pay them, you pass them to the person next to you. In Robert and I's case, we're just giving the tokens to each other. But you can see that there's going to be a really interesting flow of tokens with games that have more players. Like, I am paying to this player, and this player here is paying to me, and that player over there is paying to him, and then he is paying to her over there. So yeah, the resources, the tokens that you start with, if it's a 2-player game, then there's only 10 tokens in the entire game, no matter how much the cards cost. And if there's a 3-player game, there's only 15 total tokens that are flowing around the table, because these are research tokens. And as the book says, research should be shared. Which I thought was kind of a nice attitude. So, but yeah, it's really interesting the way the game works. And you're not going to get into too much of a situation with somebody hoarding tokens, because they're going to have to cough up those tokens sooner or later. And people have a little bit less with the expensive cards and being able to pay with bonuses, or you may want points instead of those card bonuses as you get further into the game. So you have to make kind of decisions in terms of how you're paying for stuff, whether you're using your discounts and the bonuses on cards, or whether you want to not buy cards that have bonuses on the bottom, because you've got enough tokens and enough researchers stacked up that you can get some discounts that way, and you want to start going for other advantages on the bottom of the cards. So yeah, it's a really interesting game, and it is a good strategic game, not terribly heavyweight. Nobody's going to break their brain thinking about this. But you can add levels of complexity with the modules that are in the expansion Age of Ambition. But I would definitely recommend, if you like the space program, if you like or are at the very least okay with like retro clip art kind of art and projects that were actual space projects back in the day, if the historical angle appeals to you, and you like little card management, resource management games, give this one a look. It's not terribly expensive. It's 25th Century Games. I think Robert picked this up at Barnes & Noble, but that was like spring of 2020, and I don't think I've seen it there at our local Barnes & Noble since the pandemic. But it shouldn't be too hard to find. After all, they're making expansions for it. But yeah, 25th Century Games, Space Explorers, family weight, and I highly recommend it. It is an interesting little game, and we enjoy it a whole lot. But yeah, we actually got in 3 plays of that because we played the base game before we started rolling in modules, because again, it had been so long since it was on the table. We wanted to make sure that we remembered how the game worked and everything. And we did have to check a couple of things in the rule book because, you know, you have so many games in your brain that after a certain while, bits of games start getting conflated with other bits of games, or bits of games just kind of go away from your memory altogether. Some of this stuff just never makes it into long-term memory. Actually, we remembered a fair amount of that, and I once again forgot to put the rule book in. That's kind of my thing, is boxing everything up and forgetting the rule book. So those were ones off of that list of things that we wanted to play this summer. We still have quite a few to go, and we bought more games. I picked up a button shy game. Okay, you, I think, need to be more deeply into board games than I am for this one. This button shy game is apropos of board games. It has been out of print for a long time, but they pulled some from the warehouse, and it is currently in the button shy store right now. This is a nifty little game, and it is harder than you would think. Although Robert and I discovered playing this just how very shallow our board game knowledge was. You have these cards, and they have conditions that must be met by a board game. And you have these cards, and you set these things up, must have and but no. And you will draw a certain number of cards. You're not going to use all of the cards in any given game. You're only going to use a few of the cards. So let's say, first card up, must have a hand of cards. So you think of a game that has a hand of cards. That's pretty easy. So you draw another game, and you say, is set in the future. Okay, so the game that you have that has a hand of cards is, let's say, not set in the future. So you're going like, okay, so, well, it is set in the future. So you need to place it under the but no so that it will no longer qualify for that. So the hand of cards was set in the future, let's say. And so now you've drawn the second card, and it says, but not set in the future. So now you have to come up with a game that has a hand of cards, but it's not set in the future. And you're going like, okay, I could do that. And then you draw another card, and let me see what else it is here. It says that it has a folding board. So you're thinking of a game that has a hand of cards, it's not set in the future, and you're thinking, well, okay, this one must have a folding board. And you're going like, okay, the other one didn't have a folding board, but this one must have. I can think of a game for that. But then this one must have no meeples. And you're going like, it's getting a little bit harder. And then you're going like, okay, I've got a game for this. But this game says it must have cubes. And you're going like, okay, the game that I have in mind that fits all of those criteria does not have cubes. I must have come up with another one that has cubes. And you play, I forget how many cards you draw out because it's been a couple of weeks since I played it, but oh man, did we tank. Sometimes it is easier. There are sometimes when we got very, very close. And it has rules as for what goes into what have and what goes into must have or but no. But sometimes we got close. We got within one card. We only needed to turn over one more card. But we tanked before we could turn over that one card. But our board game knowledge is so shallow. This game was really tough for us, but we had a huge amount of fun playing it, and I highly recommend it. It is fun for one or two or teams or any amount of people that you want. It is currently in stock on the Button Shy site, but it is not one of those games that is always in stock. So if you want it, you should probably get it, and that's buttonshygames.com. So yeah, a little 18-card wallet game, which just can be a huge amount of fun. A nice little filler game. And so I think, what else? We've been playing a lot of cartographers because we got this recently. though I have to admit it was starting to get a little bit samey. We were still loving it and still binging it, just playing game after game. And I have these double-sided colored pencils that I dug up from somewhere I got a long time ago that I color things in with it. And so we're enjoying it a lot. It's a little flip and write game. It is one of the best flip and writes. I would put it up there on a par with Welcome To, but it's a very different sort of game because you are making maps. You are basically flipping cards and assigning terrain shapes and types of terrain to a grid map. For the Queen, yes, she has sent you out on this mission, and there are ambush cards, and there are seasons that you go through in which you draw different numbers of cards. The ambush cards bring out monsters, or as Robert calls them, non-human interventionist. Yeah, the first time I said, and it's a monster card. Technically, the monster cards are called ambush cards, but we call them monster cards, and Robert corrects me and say non-human interventionist. So now we call those cards non-human interventionist. So anyhow, you have to draw their shapes on there, and if you don't surround them, you lose points in the end of season scoring. So we were getting pretty good at cartographers, but I kept thinking every time we played it, I should get cartographers heroes, because this is both an expansion for cartographers and a standalone game. So what's the difference between cartographers and cartographers heroes? And I started posting about this after I got heroes recently. I was surprised a lot of people didn't know the difference between them, or even that they were different games. Okay, with cartographers, you have ruin cards. With heroes, you don't have ruin cards, but you add hero cards, which can help you deal with the monsters. You have a completely new set of explore cards. You have new monster cards, which have ongoing effects, which the cartographers, the base game, the monsters are one and done. You still have to deal with them in terms of surrounding them on your map, but the cards themselves don't have ongoing effects. These do. Some of them are actually not too bad. If you can surround or destroy the dragon, you get 3 coins. And the troll kind of over the course of seasons will destroy squares around him, which will count towards surrounding. So yeah, it's not as horrific as you first think, though. Of course, monster cards, non-human interventionists, can cause a lot of problems. The maps, you get a map pad with this. The maps, the layout is a bit different in terms of where the mountains are than in regular cartographers. There are ruins on these maps. They're double-sided like these are, and there are wastelands on the flip side, just like cartographers. There are ruins on these maps, though this doesn't come with ruin cards because you can use these maps with the base game. So you've got all new explore cards. You have got all new objective cards in this. You've got all new season cards, actually. They cut one time off of the summer season for heroes. And you have new monsters, and you've got 4 hero cards. And they are mixed into the deck, same as the monster cards. Like 1 per season. 1 monster per season, 1 hero per season. Though they can kind of stack up. Our first game, man, winter was a real nail biter. That's the last season, because we had been mixing in the hero and monster cards every season, but we had not drawn a single hero or monster in the 3 seasons preceding winter in our first game of heroes. So when winter came around, we're looking at each other going like, oh, this could be bad. This could be really bad. It could get ugly. Winter is, to be fair, a short season. But yeah, we were thinking like, yeah, there's no way we're going to escape without turning up something. But we lucked out. We turned up 3 heroes and a zombie. I have to say, though, the zombie cards are pretty nasty. But not so bad if you get them in winter. I guess it's the cold. But yeah, you mix in the hero cards, same as monsters, and the way the hero cards work is hero, actually, it's a one square thing you draw on your map. It acts as its own terrain type, so if you have an objective that calls for multiple types of terrain, a hero square will count for that. You draw a little sword in it. And the hero cards, let me see if I can pull one out here. The hero cards have a pattern of attack because your heroes attack. Yeah, let's say Freya the True here. This is a hero card. You would draw the square with the sword on it, and that counts as a terrain type, and that is where your hero is on your map. And these squares, you will put dots or asterisks in those squares in relation to that hero square, and it can be turned like the other ones. And those areas, they can overlap with other things. They're not counted as filled squares. You can fill them in. But if monsters are in those squares, if monsters are in those squares, when you draw the hero thing, those monsters are destroyed. If the monsters end up being drawn in those squares, ditto, nullify the monsters. We have more hero cards here. This is another one. You can see the difference in the patterns. There are a number of different patterns here. Here are the 4 different patterns. Here's the other 2 that we have for the heroes, and those are the areas of the hero's influence. And they have such lovely artwork on the cards. I love these cards. So you have new ambushes, you have new heroes. I like the whole hero action. You also have a new type of action in that you can destroy squares. And that actually helps in dealing with the monsters too. So even though with heroes, the monsters are a little bit less straightforward and have a little bit more going on, you also have heroes which have their own thing going on. And you get a different set of explore cards, a different set of objectives. I looked on the combining things. It does tell you in Cartographer's Heroes how to combine the two. Some things you can mix and match, but the Explore cards, you can't just shuffle them together or use all of them. You have to choose to use either one deck of Explore or the other deck of Explore. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good supplement to Cartographers, or you could just start off with Heroes. Either way, we are enjoying those. We have already got a couple of games of that under our belt this weekend. We had a lot of fun with it. Though, like I said, that first game. And you know, the same thing happened, or very close to the same thing happened in our very first game of Cartographers. There were no hero cards in, just regular Cartographers, but we didn't draw any monsters until the 3rd season, and then we only got 1 monster, so it also kind of piled up in winter. Maybe it's just a weird first game thing, because it hasn't happened since. So, yeah, playing a whole lot of that. Before I get to the brand new stuff we're playing, what did we play this weekend? Well, we dove into Cartographer's Heroes for one thing. Saturday we didn't have any board games hit the table. Or did we start Heroes Saturday? I think we played it on Sunday though, but we didn't have any board games hit the table on Saturday because Saturday was Starfinder. Our local game store got power back. They've got everything up and running again. This particular Starfinder was extremely popular, so it had a full 6 and 2 on the wait list, actually a total wait list of 3. And we had 2 on the wait list, and because people were cleaning up after the hurricane and helping friends who suffered a lot of hurricane damage, we had 2 people that were originally on the wait list drop out. The 2 on the wait list moved up into the slots, and then on the morning of, one of our GMs added himself to the wait list, and somebody else dropped off the wait list, and so we had a full 6. And what made this Starfinder such a hot ticket, and I know that I really wish that the people who dropped off, I know they probably dropped off because of hurricane damage and dealing with stuff like that, because there are still a lot of people dealing with stuff. There's still, I think, 250,000 people without power. I think Saturday got it down to under 500,000. So yeah, and there are still a lot of cleanup. There are certain areas that look really bad. So I'm sure that we would not have had so many dropouts if it hadn't been for the hurricane. And it was really a shame that people had to drop out, but we had a full party, and this was a hot ticket because the GM running this game was the person who wrote the module. And it was a super fun module. It was just one of those problem-solving, chaotic, fun sort of things with funny, crazy things happening. And I mean, there were times where we came up with stuff, and I mean, the look on the GM's face, it was like, okay. And there were a couple of times he's going like, everybody solves this a different way. You know, it's like, so yeah, we had a huge amount of fun. And I have to say, though, I mean, it's a shame that, you know, we couldn't have had, that some people missed the module due to having to deal with hurricane stuff. This was, quite coincidentally, the perfect module to run in a disaster area for people that are just kind of coming out of that whole dealing with the hurricane thing. Hurricane Beryl, Cat 1 hurricane, but did a hell of a lot of damage. For those of you that didn't see the previous video, or the post before that. But I mean, a lighthearted thing like this, when we've all just been kind of put through the ringer, it was just the perfect module to have for this situation. And that was quite coincidental because this was scheduled well ahead of time. In fact, our GM knew that the next month that the GM was going to be the person who wrote the module that was slotted in. They already knew that, even though it wasn't posted. So yeah, well before the hurricane, it was scheduled to be a lighthearted episode. So that was just, it was a huge amount of fun. It was exactly what we needed. And we had a lot of fun with that and hanging out with the Starfinder people. And that was just really, really good. And then on Sunday, we met up with the family for pizza. So that was also just a lot of fun. Again, just kind of doing something relaxing and normal, and a place that's open. More places are opening up, but we're still finding, as we contact businesses for goods and services, that there are still places that, you know, there's still stuff that we're having to defer that we wanted to do, or that we planned on doing, or that we need to do. And it's like, and the office is closed, or the business is closed, or we have power but the registers don't work, or something, you know. So after pizza, I introduced the family to Reiner Knizia's Soda Smugglers, which we have played before. Some of you may remember me mentioning this months back. This plays 3 to 8, which is why it doesn't hit the table very often, is because it really needs a group. This really, really needs a group. We played it at 3 a few months ago, and it worked. Technically, it worked. But because they do have alterations that you make and how many of these kind of tokens and stuff that you use depending upon player count, technically it worked at 3. You could play it. You could learn to play the game at 3. But in terms of the whole dynamic and fun thing and figuring out who did what to whom, it really falls flat at 3. But we played it with 5. Sister-in-law sat out this game. We've played it at 5, and at 5, this thing really goes. It plays really, really well at 5. You are trying to smuggle sodas across the border. It is essentially a bluffing game. You are offering a bribe. Each round, one player plays the border guard, and they have two suitcases which have a varying amount of sodas in, or maybe they're empty. And you have one bribe. Everybody reveals their bribe at the first time. The person playing the border guard decides which bribe they're going to take. That person pays for them out of their own resources, the bribe, and then they take from the general supply, they turn over their luggage and show how many sodas they actually had. They can go through with those sodas, and they take those numbers from the general supply, and it's how many bottle caps you've got at the end that you win. So most bottle caps wins. So then after deciding which bribe they're going to take, the border guard can choose to inspect a single suitcase of a player. Let me see if I can set this up here so I don't have to hold it the whole time. And depending upon the number of players, the number of bribe tokens, inspect tokens, and arrest tokens varies. In a 5-player game, you have 1 bribe token, 1 inspect token, and 2 arrest tokens. And that seemed to work out okay. So he could take 1 bribe, and then after that, he must inspect the suitcase or use the inspect token. You don't have to use all the tokens, but you have to do them in this order. He can decide to inspect a piece of luggage. Let's say they turn over a card and there's 1 soda in there. Then they got to decide, okay, do I want to arrest them because I think that they've got more soda in that other suitcase? 1 is still legal. And they offered this many as a bribe, or maybe they had an empty suitcase that they were offering as a bribe. And so you've got to try to figure out. And of course, there's a lot of table talk going like, oh, they look guilty. I'm sure they're smuggling something. Here, take my bribe. It's like, that's like, don't look at me. I'm innocent. Look at this. I've got hardly anything to offer as a bribe. My suitcases are empty. And so they've got to decide, like, do I want to give an arrest token and see what's in that second suitcase? Do I want to arrest somebody else that I inspected if there's 2 inspect tokens in play with a larger player count? Or do I just want to arrest somebody that I haven't expected at all just on the basis of how many sodas are showing in their bribe? So yeah, it's that kind of thing. And the border guard gets paid according to their successful arrest. I did really well in that. I was totally tanking. People were like laughing because I was doing this kind of margin of thing. Like if somebody accepted my bribe, I was only ending up with, because I have to pay for that out of my tokens, my bottle caps, I was only ending up with like a 1 bottle cap profit out of each exchange or something. But I did much better as a guard. So everybody takes a turn doing guards. I think at a higher player count, and this plays up to 8, that you may take 2 turns around the table. But at 5, it's still at the 1 turn around the table with everyone taking a turn as a border guard, and then whoever has the most bottle caps at the end wins. So you're trying to get bottle caps by smuggling the sodas if they take your bribe. And I might add that if the border guard doesn't take your bribe or arrest you, then you're free and clear to go across. You can turn over both of your luggage and take those bottle caps. So yeah, you can make a profit even if they don't take your bribe and you're smuggling more, or if they falsely arrest you. The false arrests are the most fun, because if you arrest somebody then and they have fewer bottles than they're smuggling the legal number of bottles over the border, then you must, and it says this in the rule book, sincerely apologize to them, which is often the source of much hilarity and theatrics. Those sincere apologies, which just kind of adds to the fun of the game. But Yeah, if you can get enough people together to play and you like bluffing games and table talk and general lightheartedness, this is one you should maybe give a look to. The Watch It Play crew played this, and that's how I know about it. If I remember, I will put a link to their video below because it is also a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, it's a Rana Knizia game, so you know the design is solid. It plays 3 to 8, and you can get bottle cap upgrades. Like I think they're plastic caps that look kind of clinky and everything on the publisher website or from the publisher website. And let me see, what else have I not covered in all the time since I have talked about board games? We did do a 4th of July cookout. That was right before the hurricane hit. And I had yard games. We put yard games out. I did not play yard games because I was just like talking to various people and bringing food out and helping with the cookout and doing the music. I did a music playlist, but I would forget and walk into the house with my phone and it would disconnect from the speaker, so I had to reconnect a couple of times. Oh, yeah, so I didn't actually play games because I was greeting people as they came in and doing other stuff. So, but the games did get played. We had a thing called, I think, Coney Island Beanbag Toss, which is basically like cornhole. That was already set up on the lawn when people got there. I have a giant Jenga, but it was not broken out for this. And I had, a yard Yahtzee game, which has large size dice and it comes in a big plastic cup. You can dump the dice and dry erase markers for marking everything out. I am not sure. I don't think that got played either. But the cornhole, because it was already set up and, you know, right out there in front of people when they arrived, I think that that's what drew people to it. But yeah, I think it's called Yardsy, and you can also play Farkle. The flip side of the driver's race score sheets are Farkle, and I got more score sheets because you can buy extras of those. So because Yahtzee and those kind of dice rolling, writing in numbers kind of games, those can play huge numbers of people. So that's something to keep in mind if the heat lets up and you want to do an outdoor thing. And then, you know, right before all of that, right after I did the video where I said we need to play games that are on our shelves that we really love and haven't gotten to the shelves, we bought games. The big game that is going to be heavy and is going to take a little bit to learn how to play and that I was not too sure about, we haven't played that one yet. But we did play first The Pursuit of Happiness, because so very, very, very many people told me this is a good game. You will like this game. Even though I said that I didn't really like the game of life that much as a kid. I played it a lot because somebody I know had the game, but I didn't really, it's like I played it a whole bunch and got burned out on it really fast. This is actually a solid strategy game. I would say it is a light strategy game. This is not a heavy Euro. This is a light strategy game. Maybe, I don't know, maybe family weight plus, shall we say. I wouldn't say that kids would necessarily get into it. They might actually like the game of life better. But yeah, we enjoyed this a lot. It gives you a lot more choices and agency, and I don't think that lid's going to stay up. You have project cards in which you can choose projects that you can do and get resources for them. It is also a resource management thing. You can buy items or do activities. You can have partners, and your partners can be male or female. They're not going to be gender specific. You can just flip the card over to choose either male or female partner, and it has different names. The resources that you get and the maintenance of the partner, you actually have to pay maintenance on the partners. Actually, some of the activities you have to pay maintenance for. Some of the projects, I think you pay more to upgrade certain projects. But yeah, and you can have these different life goals, and your child trait is basically uh, your asymmetrical special ability or special bonus thing that every player gets at the very beginning. But it is a fun little game. It's very light. The table talk can be kind of fun and interesting at times. I mean, for your projects, you can act in a play or participate in a singing festival or build models or, yeah, I had model building and let's see, I got an aquarium. And oddly enough, and I've had aquariums in real life, the aquarium did not have any maintenance cost. But yeah, you can, for your activities, you can have a personal library which you can upgrade from a shelf to a wall to a room. You can buy yourself a boat. Or, this was a big favorite of ours, we got a comic book collection. I think Robert got the comic book collection because I got an aquarium and a garden, which I upgraded to like big palatial grounds. And I got a board game collection and a whiskey collection. It was, yeah, I left these on the bottom so that they would be easy to find. You can buy things or do activities like go to a concert or go canoeing or buy jewelry. And these things, they have certain costs, but they also give you certain resources. And those are the activity things. But there are also projects like student activism and healthy eating, which will get you bonuses. There are game jams with your friends and growing bonsai trees. You can write a play or develop a secret recipe. You can develop an invention. There's model making. I got model making, even though I don't paint my minis. I had model making as one of my projects. You can do time-related projects like Sudoku tournaments, and you can start up a band. That is a group project. You can do group projects with other people, or participate in. Or let's see. Ooh, there's a Robot Wars competition, and there's a startup company. They have a whole bunch of different, and those are projects. The startup company would be a project. There are a whole bunch of different professions, and the profession cards are double-sided so that you can choose either side to be the profession. If you don't like the title, the difference is essentially the title from either side of the card. So yeah, and the profession, you can get a raise and basically get promotions within that field and move up in your profession, which gets you more resources. So yeah, it's a fun game. It is absolutely, the design is absolutely solid. If you don't care anything about the design, you just care how well the game works, this game works really well. And it is a lot of fun because, like I said, it's light strategy, it's table talk. You can have a lot of fun with it and going like, ooh, I'm gonna start a band, or I'm going to get an aquarium, or paint minis or something like that for projects or materials or stuff like that. And so there's a lot of, you're doing these strategy things in order to level up and get resources and things like that. But at the same time, the stuff that you're getting and doing, if you like cards that kind of give you a little ooh, sort of because they relate to something in real life that you like, this might be a good shot for you. But like I said, the table talk can be pretty amusing because Robert just ribbed me mercilessly because I only started dating Carrie for his resources. And he just gave me a bad time about that. I didn't actually get married in the game. I only dated Carrie for his resources because he had what I really needed at that exact point in the game, and I hadn't gotten a partner. You have to be careful not to get too much stress. If you have too many projects, you get stress. And if you have more than one partner, you get stress. Like if you're dating two people at one time. But you also get happiness tokens in this game, which is kind of neat. And so you're trying to like get more happiness and less stress. And another game that we played, which is the new game that we got, and Pursuit of Happiness is not a new game. This game has actually been around for quite a while, but Let's Go to Japan is a new game. Kind of heavy too. I mentioned this when we first got it, and we have now played it. We played 2 games back to back. The turns are very snappy. I will say this, the turns are very snappy. We enjoyed this a lot. I think I've done everything. I've mentioned everything here. But yeah, we enjoyed this a lot. We played 2 games. The artwork is beautiful. The game plays very, very well. The turns are snappy. Not a terrible whole lot of AP, analysis paralysis. This tells you the round tracker, and you go through these kind of rounds, and you have, the way I bag these things up is because everybody starts with a certain number of tokens that they place on their individual player board, because this does not have a central board. Each player is doing their own thing on their own board. But you do pass cards. The card drafting thing, cards move. This is one of those card drafting situations. So there is a certain amount of player interaction in that sense, though you can take certain actions which will allow you to draw more cards. If you can turn in a briefcase that will allow you to draw more cards, or you can take a walk in which you just discard a card and pull a random card out of there and slot it in on a particular day. But the way I bag these things, because everybody starts off with a certain number of tokens that they need to place in certain spots on their board for starting positions, so I just bagged all the things that each player color needs in individual bags. And then you do have certain tokens that are general supply. These are wild tokens. They are very helpful. We did not need the plus 12 tokens because we did not go over that amount in our first games. And here are the suitcases you can earn. When you finish off a day, you have certain bonuses that you can get, 3 cards per day. The game plays actually pretty quickly and smooth, easy to learn. I would say this could be considered a family weight game. It's one of those kind of games that it's like, honestly, we looked at the AEG video on how to play it, and that video was just, I mean, yes, they told you everything you need to play it, but not in any useful way or way that you could absorb. Basically, they did every single thing that they could do, and the audio was speeded up to twice the thing, so it all just went past. I mean, it was so fast you couldn't even use it for setup. So we used a different video to learn how to play the game, and I will put that down below. But yeah, I mean, when you first look at it, you're going like, okay, you've got to do this and you've got to do that, and you move this here and you do that there, and it just seems like there's a lot of stuff going on. But then you look at it and you're going like, oh, yeah, but that's actually kind of easy. And that is true. What you actually do in this game is pretty easy, but it's got really tricky, puzzly decision-making processes. Playing the game and learning to play the game, this is not difficult. If I can learn it, you can learn it. This is a solid game. It really is. It is not a heavy game at all, but at the same time, you got some tricky choices to make in the course of the game, and that's what makes it really good. Not to mention the fact, as I said, it's got beautiful artwork, and on the cards it gives you information about all of the places. This is a very immersive game. You are planning a trip to Japan when you play this game, and it is solidly immersive. I mean, you are just in it. And we love this. This game is a good one. This game is going to stick around for a very, very, very long time. So yeah, this is a new game. This is the retail version The Kickstarter version has deluxeified something or others that I don't think you actually necessarily need. The retail version is just fine. So, I mean, if you just want to grab this retail thing, that's fine. So, yeah, and I left the rule book out of Pursuit of Happiness. Right, I'll be putting stuff away after the video, and this video has been just insanely longer than all of my other videos, and I'm sorry, but this is like about 3 or 4 weeks worth of games that we played because I missed a week, and then I did one, and then we had the hurricane, and then it's just been too much. But I think we are now caught up with all of the stuff that we have done. If you have questions about the game, put them in comments. I will try to answer them. But I am just an average board gamer. And so I may not be able to answer them, but I should be able to answer at least some of them or point you towards someone who can answer, because I watch a lot of videos. And I will try to put some helpful videos down below for some of these games and stuff. But yeah, we've been having just a crazy amount of fun. I mean, just a lot of fun around the table. And I hope y'all have been having some fun around the table too. It's good to be back talking to you after all the madness of the hurricane. And I mean, we are still in a disaster area. But we personally, Robert and I, are not disastrous enough that we can't play games again. So we are now back to playing board games. And I hope that y'all are all having a good time too. And I will see you all next time around the table. Bye.